All right, good afternoon, everyone. We hope that you've been having a great weekend so far. So my name is Ria Gupta. I'm a grade 12 student, and I am president of the Project Pulse Winnipeg executive team this year. Project Pulse is a nonprofit youth-led organization, and our goal is to familiarize high school students with the field of the health sciences. In the past, this came in the form of an annual in-person conference, but with the emergence of the pandemic last year, Project Pulse Winnipeg switched seamlessly to an online platform, and we continue to bring students events, resources, and opportunities for health sciences education. All of the executive team roles are filled with passionate and hardworking students, and we come from diverse cultural and academic communities in Winnipeg. All these roles contribute significantly to Project Pulse Winnipeg, and they helped plan today's event. So today, our Events and External Relations Director, Wisdom, will be hosting the mental health event. And on behalf of the team, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our audience, which consists of high school and post-secondary students from all over the province. We encourage everyone to have their cameras on for the best experience, but it is not a requirement. Please note that this event will be recorded and the recording is being posted on Project Pulse Winnipeg's online platforms. Please fill out and return the waiver attached to the email that you received this morning to confirm your consent and be posted as a part of this video. And if we do not have your permission to feature you in the video, you do not need to turn your camera on, and you're welcome to engage through the chat function instead. So without any further ado, I will hand this off to Wisdom to introduce herself, our event for today, and our distinguished guests. Off to you, Wisdom.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wisdom, and I'm the Events and External Relations Director for Project Pulse Winnipeg. Today, mental health is more prominent in society than it has ever been, and this is so important that we learn what it means, how to deal with stressors and mental health concerns, how to help others who we suspect are dealing with mental health concerns, and learn about how mental health ties to the health sciences. This is why we at Project Pulse are so excited to team up with the Canadian Mental Health Association for this event that will be about these topics. In this event, you'll learn about creating greater awareness of how stressors impact our mental health and well-being, building greater capacity to cope with stressors, understanding stigma's impact on our mental health and well-being, and increasing our recovery-oriented language to grow our mental health literacy, finding resources and supports to help ourselves and others who are experiencing mental health concerns, and discovering how the opportunities that exist in considering a career in the social sciences field. So how this event will run is, first, I will introduce our speakers for today, then we will watch a presentation that the speakers have already prepared, and then finally, there will be a chance for the audience to ask any questions that they may have. All right, so now going into the speakers. Our first speaker is Stephen Sutherland, who is currently the program manager of mental health promotion at the Canadian Mental Health Association Manitoba and Winnipeg office. He is an experienced mental health clinician and educator with a history of working in the mental health care industry, post-secondary, and the nonprofit sector in both Canada and the US. He is also a dynamic speaker, engaging teacher, person-centered therapist, and innovative leader that drives positive change. He is authentic and vulnerable, sharing his lived and living experience and expertise with mental illness and how he has used connection as a vehicle of personal and professional transformation. Our second speaker is Shelby Davidson, who is a youth mental health promotion coordinator for the Canadian Mental Health Association, Manitoba and Winnipeg, and she is passionate about supporting youth and youth mental health. Currently, Shelby coordinates the Thrival Kids Project, which is a school-based mental health program for grades 4 to 6 based in children's rights. When not working for the CMHA, Manitoba and Winnipeg, Shelby loves being out in nature, and hiking is her favorite activity, and one of her favorite Manitoba sites to hike is the Riding Mountain National Park. With that, I'd like to hand it off to our panelists to begin their presentation. After the presentation, we'll have time for pre-prepared questions and for the audience to ask any live questions. If anyone thinks of any questions during the presentation, feel free to type them in the chat and they'll be addressed in the Q&A section after the presentation. With that, the panelists, you can take it away.
Well, Wisdom and, gang here, thank you so much for, inviting us. I'm going to share my screen and we can get underway with the presentation that we've prepared for you folks. Super excited to be able to do this on the weekend. We're usually doing these things during the week, and so we're super excited. And I just realized that I forgot to share my my audio. I do that all the time. You think we would get used to this, 1,000 times, because we've been in this pandemic for 400 years, but my apologies for that. So I'm going to share my sound because we've got some videos to show you folks. The beautiful thing is you're recording this, and so those that weren't able to attend today, we're really excited that this is going to be on your social media platforms and on your website, and it sounds like you're really engaged with one another. And I couldn't agree with you more, Wisdom and Ria, on the topic of mental health and well-being in community. Before the pandemic, being able to go into schools or go into businesses, we didn't. It's not like we never got requests, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of requests have come in to, again, build the mental health literacy. The work that we do in schools and post-secondary and workplaces, has been going on for decades. But more than ever, how this pandemic has really created an opportunity for us to educate ourselves and to help and resource others. What I love about this too is how is it connected to our future, and our future aspirations, vocations, our callings in our life. And so really quite excited to share things with you today. And hopefully there's some nuggets that you're able to deposit. And again, I would reiterate, if there's questions that come up, we really do want this to be interactive, at the end where we can answer some questions. But I do want to start and ground ourselves at this time. We would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the original land of the Cree, Ojibwe, Dene, and Dakota peoples, as well as the homeland and birthplace of the Red River Métis. The water we drink comes from Treaty 3 territory of Shoal Lake 40 First Nation. Our electricity comes from Treaty 5 territory. At this time, we also want to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and dedicate ourselves to moving forward and participate in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. We're excited here at the CMHA. If you've not heard of the CMHA, it's understandable. We've only been around for 103 years, but we are a federation in 330 different local communities from coast to coast to coast to coast. And so we're really quite excited that we have the opportunity today and tomorrow and in the future to continue to partner with our Indigenous communities, both here in Manitoba and across our lovely and beautiful country. So hello, welcome, whatever language, whatever your first language is today, we just want to thank you and welcome you here today. I hope you've had a good weekend. The weekend's not over. I know y'all are studying for exams and things that are coming up. And so I wish you well with those things. My commitment and Shelby's commitment today for the next hour and a bit is to really focus our attention on you folks and what you've asked us to come and do, and just really want you to take as much as you can in as you focus in on this presentation. Again, here's our team. We've got Shelby here today. James, unfortunately, is ill, and so he's not with us, but Shelby and James are both youth mental health promotion coordinators. Shelby gives leadership to our Thrival Kits, which is an incredible whole school-based mental health promotion program for grades 4 to 6 in schools, and 32,000 plus kids this year in Manitoba are using that shoebox mental health promotion tool along with their teachers, and it's just absolutely incredible. So if you want to learn more about Thrival Kits, go to thrivalkits.ca. And James does our Speak Up for grades 7, 8, 9, and 11. and it's a 5-day, again, mental health promotion, whole school-based approach to building mental health literacy, reducing stigma, and then increasing help-seeking behaviors. Again, 50 minutes, 5 days a week, facilitated by folks in the schools. And if you want to learn more about that, you can head over to our website, CMHA or mbwpg.ca to learn more about, or CMHA.ca. It's right on the screen. You know, I can't read, learning how to do that these days. But just type in speak up, and then you'll get a whole bunch of information. Again, super excited to be with you. So what I'd like you to do, is for the next 60 seconds, just to, in the chat feature, write down some things that you're grateful for, okay? So I don't know why that did that. Let me see here. There we go, we got our timer going. And so wondering if you could just, what is it that you're grateful for? Maybe it's, it's the weekend. Who doesn't like the weekend? Maybe it's the school that you go to, your engagement with your friends. Maybe you like your siblings, that happens sometimes. You're grateful for your family, for health. Maybe you're grateful that you haven't stepped in a puddle this weekend, and yeah, so just in that chat feature, if you want to put that in, that would be really great. Okay, so wondering if we can look at the chat. Shelby, did some people write some things down?
Yes, there are some things written down. So first I wrote, I'm grateful for the opportunity to join all of you today. And then Ria wrote family, friends, quality of life. Wisdom shared that she's grateful for her family and health and friends. We had a couple other shares, grateful for friends and family. Performing, another person is grateful for performing arts as choir, dance, community, education, and friends. And then another participant said that they're grateful for the education they're able to receive, the family, the community they have around them. So it sounds like everybody has a lot of things that they're grateful for, which is really lovely. That's lovely to see.
And I know that, my colleague, Shelby, has shared some of the things that she's grateful for. I want to say I'm grateful for clean drinking water, reliable and authentic friendships. I have such great connected friendships, all the way from, grade 1. I have one of my friends, met him in elementary school. Shout out to Frontenac School, go Flames. We actually have the same birthday too. How funny is that? The unconditional love that I get every day from people in my life, to be able to spend time with my extended family in Ontario whenever I want to, and friends. I love Starbucks. Okay, so I'm grateful for my baristas on Ellis and Milsteagle. Shout out to them; they're amazing people. So, so we know that we're grateful for some really important things in our lives. And I think, this is what's important when we're having conversations about our mental health and well-being, is sometimes we can focus on all the deficiencies and all the things that we're just not really good at, or we don't have in our lives. And so just really want to start off really well of just reminding ourselves of the things that we do have and that we do have access to.
The mental health of Canada's post-secondary students is critically important. 3 out of every 4 mental health problems have started by the age of 24, when many are in or just out of post-secondary. To help support positive mental health for Canada's students, the Mental Health Commission of Canada has led the development of the national standard for mental health and well-being for post-secondary students. It's a voluntary, flexible set of guidelines to help post-secondary institutions foster good mental health for Canada's 2 million students. And it's the first of its kind in the world. The guidelines were developed with the Commission's partners and the CSA Group, a global leader in standards development. They follow 2 years of listening to the perspectives of students, institutions, mental health experts, and many others across the country. We know the 2020 global pandemic has increased uncertainty for students and amplified feelings of stress and anxiety about the future. Canada's post-secondary institutions can be change agents in mental health by aligning their work with the national standard, creating healthy learning environments for everyone. Review the national standard on mental health and well-being for post-secondary students today. Visit mentalhealthcommission.ca/English/student standard.
So what's really great about being a student today, and when I was a student 100 years ago, we didn't have this, this national standard. And again, it's the first of its kind, in the world for students, for post-secondary students. And so whatever university you're attending, there are wellness supports for you. So as you transition to post-secondary, if you are in post-secondary right now, the beautiful thing is that the universities are buying into implementing this standard. So in your student wellness supports, in your academics, in your syllabi that you get in the beginning of the semester, there's going to be more mental health connection supports. So when you're stressed, you're able to then go to the counseling center or the wellness center, or there might be a peer mentoring program. There might be a recovery college model in your institution that you're attending. And so there's lots of resources, but also resources to the local community. The university and student services is not the be all end all of services. And so just like the government, they rely on places like ourselves, in the local community to provide services. So this national standard is really, really important, and really want to highlight that right in the beginning. Have a listen to this.
I was about 16 when I was diagnosed with depression. My doctors think that it stemmed from my parents divorcing and struggling with school, really.
It all started when my father died when I was at high school.
It all started in university during my final year.
It all started when I was 16. I came out of a relationship I was in at the time, and I started purging and self-harming.
I first realised I had a mental health problem when I was 15. I was cutting myself every day and crying all the time.
Soon after the attack happened, I started to feel throes of anxiety, panic attacks started creeping in.
I first realised that I had a problem when I really wanted to stop all the things I was doing, but I just couldn't seem to stop no matter how badly I wanted to.
I was suffering from hallucinations, which at the time were really scary because I didn't know what was reality and what was my imagination.
At my worst, I felt like I was absolutely worthless, alienating and destructive, with no help of recovery.
I felt like I had this black cloud hanging constantly over my head, and it's just a feeling that stays with you and you can't seem to get away from it at all, and you feel completely alone.
I felt like this was going to be it forever.
I felt as though I'd never reach any of my ambitions or my goals.
I felt like I was in my own bubble, hearing muffled voices of people around me.
When I had my first proper mental breakdown, and I decided to run away from home.
I felt like the world would be better off without me.
My mental health problem means that I go through many highs and lows which I struggle to control.
Sometimes I just want to hide away.
I feel that I have to make everyone else happy, and every day is a struggle, but I just remind myself that I'm strong.
My mental health problem means that sometimes the world can be a very scary, very dangerous, and very dark place.
Everyday tasks can become the most mammoth missions that seem like you're never going to be able to do them.
My mental health problem means that life is hard.
The hardest thing about having a mental health problem is people not realising that there's something wrong with you and that you can be really ill even if you look absolutely fine. I think especially having an eating disorder, people assume that you're going to look a certain way or be a certain size or a shape, or they imagine certain stereotypes that aren't necessarily true.
Like the social and in my case, like the cultural stigma associated with it.
If I'm having a bad day, no matter how small it is, it feels like the whole world's crashing in on me and things just keep getting worse.
Just trying to get the people around me to understand what I'm going through when they haven't gone through something like me is probably the hardest thing.
Social situations in particular can be really difficult. I sometimes can't commit to what we'd call sort of normal everyday activities.
The word schizo, I think it has a lot of stigma attached to it. I really don't like it.
What really reassured me was knowing that there are so many other people out there who've got the same diagnosis as me and that I'm not alone.
Having my 2 rescue dogs to look after and to take care of, because I know that they need me around and they're always happy to see me. So no matter how bad my day is or how awful everything seems to be, I know that they need me and they always make me smile.
Having such a great network of friends, family, and people who are out there who can help.
I'd look at how far I've come and everything that I'd gone through and realise that I am still standing.
It really helps when my friends treat me the way that they did 6 years ago before this all started. I was that happy, laid-back person, and that's the person that I want to be and aspire to be again.
It really helps me when people just treat me normally.
I'd like people to treat me like you would your own mother, I guess. Yeah, I think that's a good way to treat people.
I don't want people to tiptoe around me.
Would like people to treat me like any other normal person, but also just to be a bit more sensitive around me, not to be stigmatised, depression and everything, and telling me to cheer up and everything.
I wish I'd known how much I was going to grow and learn as I grew up and grew older. I wish I'd known how much therapy was going to help me and how much I was going to gain from that. And I wish I'd known that it was possible to meet people who would love me for all of me, including my mental illness.
That I didn't have to feel so alone and that there was a lot of support out there.
That there are people out there and organisations that can help me.
I don't regret having mental health problems because it has made me who I am today.
I wish I'd known just how supportive people can be once you tell them what you're going through.
People are accepting. They're not going to walk down the street and cry, "You mental case." They're not going to, they're not going to do anything like that. Everyone's incredibly understanding. And if they're not, them.
So the best piece of advice I'd have to give would be just getting over that initial fear of coming out to people about your condition, because once you talk about it, it really does help.
The best piece of advice I ever got was to just focus on today, because you can't change what's happened in the past, and there's honestly no real way of predicting what's going to happen in the future.
I know it's hard, but be yourself and be brave, and you will recover.
Take each day as it comes, and even if that's too much, break it right down to just 5 minutes at a time. I find that really helps.
Just ask for help, just make that step and ask anybody, and they will be supportive for you.
Everybody has scars. Some people have them in the mind and some people have them on legs like I do.
Just basically be yourself. That's simple enough and what it might be a bit cliche, but I guess it's true.
It's okay to be mental, and that most people are, just not in the same way as you, but there are ways to get help.
Even if you think that things can't get better, that you've tried so many times and you've fed up and you've had enough of trying, things really can, and you can get better and you can recover. So don't give up on yourself.
Yeah, it's so good to be able to hear from folks with lived experience, and for people to be so courageous in looking back at, when did a mental health, problem or challenge, or when was a diagnosis, what were some of those symptoms? And again, we go back to our experiences, in our adolescence typically, and being able to understand what mental health is. I think these 6 courageous people really gave us a great sense of what that is. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, and can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. So Again, we all have mental health just like we have physical health. 5 in 5 have physical health, 5 in 5 have mental health. We know that 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a mental health challenge or problem this in a year's time. During pandemic, those stats have increased dramatically, knowing that most Canadians, more than 56% of Canadians, are experiencing greater anxiety and greater symptoms of depression. And so we're all being impacted by how our world has changed in terms of our well-being. I think it's important to look at what well-being is, right? And it's it's conceptualized by the following components. Again, life satisfaction, pleasant emotions, and lower levels of negative moods, okay? And so Ed Diner, psychologist, I really love this because, when we're talking about being able to cope and do the things that we want to do and contribute to society, it's about satisfaction. It's about, pleasant emotions. Sometimes we just don't know the emotions that we're experiencing. We have not had the opportunity to describe those or live in an environment or study in an environment where that was taught or embraced. And so often we talk about feeling fine or feeling good or feeling okay, and yet those are not emotions. And so pleasant emotions like happiness, contentment, excitement, those can be really, present in our lives. And sometimes we don't know because we don't have words to associate those with. Because we're focused on some of those negative ones that often are shared in media and sensationalized, and sometimes we're not in an environment where it's conducive to looking at what is the hopefulness here. And again, I love what the Public Health Agency of Canada says, the capacity of each and all of us to feel, think, and act in ways that enhance our ability to enjoy life and to deal with challenges we face. It's a positive sense of emotional and spiritual well-being. And again, I love this, that respects the importance of culture, equity, social justice, interconnected connections, and personal dignity. We all want to have a sense of community. We are made for connection. And so again, our emotional and spiritual well-being is so important. So when we think of mental health, it's not just this, it's not just what we sometimes think of as what are our thoughts, what are our emotions, what of our experiences, how have we responded to that? It's so much bigger than that. It's really about the experiences and the goals we have in our lives that are connected with the people and the communities that we want and we have the privilege of being able to be a part of. So again, to boil it down, mental health includes 6 factors. So a sense of purpose, again, that relational side of things, feeling connected to others. So whatever that is, our family, our friends, our schoolmates, our educators, our cultural, spiritual communities, having a good sense of self. So what is that self-awareness? When we are in a place of stress, sometimes what we do is we second guess ourselves, and that self-acceptance, and we start believing the lies that we keep on telling ourselves, that we're not good enough or not worthy. Being able to cope with stress. And so I think this is one of the greatest opportunities we have today, is to normalize stressors. Sometimes we are struggling with anxiety. Well, anxiety is a part of all of our lives. It's good to be anxious about things. If I wasn't anxious about a test that was coming up, I probably wouldn't study for it. And so I think there's some great reasons why it's important to have some anxious thoughts. But when they become so prevalent, when they inhibit us from moving forward, I think that's when we we want to work through those things. And again, the enjoyment of life, okay? You know, we all want to live life to the full, and so how do we do that? And it's all going to look different. There's no cookie cutter, you know, this is how you have to do it. I love the creativity of young people. I love the innovation that has come out, you know, in the last number of years. And so we want people to be able to engage in all of these things. And again, we know that, you know, caring for our mental health decreases levels of stress. So when we find those really good self-care, you know, engagements, that's going to help us. It increases resilience and coping strategies. Again, you know, that bounce back from stressful opportunities, and then to decrease thoughts of self-harm and suicide. We know that this demographic of young people, ages 15 to 29, the number one cause of death for this age group is suicide. And so we want to reduce those numbers. And in Indigenous communities, it's 10 times sometimes in parts of Canada of the national average. And so we need to do a better job at helping reduce the stigma, but also increasing those help-seeking behaviors.
Like we all have physical health, we all have mental health too. And the key to achieving maximum well-being is to have an equal balance of good physical and mental health. When seeking to gain a better understanding of mental health, it is important to understand that there are two elements that impact mental health. These are mental well-being and mental illness diagnosis, both of which have a huge impact on a person's life. You will all find yourselves in one of the following four quadrants. A person with no mental illness or disorder and positive mental health. A person with no diagnosed mental illness or disorder, but who has poor mental well-being. A person with a diagnosis of a serious mental illness and who has poor mental well-being. A person with a diagnosis of a serious mental illness but who copes well and has positive mental well-being. We all exist in one of these quadrants at any given point and as a continuum that keeps on going and changes slowly over time, as does our mental health. This is a way to visually demonstrate how something as invisible as our mental health is fluid and constantly changing. This can be taken a step further through using the varying mood-coloured lines and sliders on both axes. You can be more specific and record the changes to your mental health over time. This is Nick. Nick has a mental illness diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, putting him on this axis. And so he places the slider here. Today is a good day for Nick. He is managing things quite well. So for his mental well-being, he places the slider here. By drawing a line up and across from each slider, Nick can record where he is today. The next day, however, Nick wakes to find his demons of darkness have returned. He withdraws from everyone, binge eats, self-medicates, and doesn't sleep. He still has a mental illness diagnosis, though he feels it is worse, so moves the slider here. And his mental well-being has worsened, so moves it here. Nick draws the lines and records the date again. The important message to take away is our mental health is fluid and forever changing. when someone has a mental illness diagnosis or poor mental well-being. This does not mean they are unable to work or ever will again. With early recognition, interventions, treatments and support, an individual can learn to better manage symptoms and work on their overall well-being.
So I love the video and the matrix that we are talking about, those quadrants. And so just like Nick, I live with complex post-traumatic stress, and I live with ADHD. And so I find myself with a diagnosis, a couple of diagnoses, and most of the time I'm living in that upper quadrant where I'm able to manage with ongoing therapy, pharmaceuticals, positive coping strategies. It allows us to see that we don't just stay in one spot. This is one of the takeaways that often people go, this blows my mind, Stephen, where we all have the opportunity to be healthy. And when we get to that injured and that ill stage, where our anxiety has increased, our restlessness or disturbed sleep patterns, we're more fatigued, the social avoidance or withdrawal happens. Part of the opportunities we have is to seek out that professional help, right? So again, we need to know who to go to. We need to feel that no one's going to judge or shame me, that, the stigma in some of the circles that we're in is still so high. Although I really believe we've done a lot of great intentional education to reduce that stigma. But this is fluid. It goes back and forth. So most of the time, I'm in that healthy phase where, I can focus on the task at hand. But when I start, getting more reactive instead of responsive, where I would say that's more healthy, that's my opportunity to go, okay, how am I supporting myself? What do I need in this moment? And again, how do we identify and minimize and reduce the stressors in our lives by creating opportunities of self-care and positive coping strategies? And that could be a whole host of things, and we'll get to that in just a bit. But this is a really good model, and I'd encourage those that are here today and those that are watching this, to really look at this. If you have an opportunity to print this out, put it somewhere, but really study this, because I think as you go through your high school years and you make that transition to post-secondary or whatever is after high school, this is going to be a place where it's going to assist you in looking at what are the best next steps for me to take into consideration of what I can do for myself. Or if we're supporting somebody, so somebody's come to us or we've noticed some changes in their behavior in how they're doing life. They usually were really responsive, and now I really feel like they're reacting. They're really angry. Their anxiety is really excessive. They seem to be in more of a rage pattern, or just really have withdrawn completely. And so those could be some areas of concern that we can bring up. And again, we'll talk about that just in a moment. And so what I love is this picture of a willow tree. And I don't know if you have seen a willow tree in the last little while, but beneath the soil, the roots grow with fervor and remarkable strength, right? So the graceful weeping growth habit of the willow tree may look dainty, and it does kind of look dainty, but its power is not one to be underestimated. So during the pandemic, this has been a really great model for me and what I've and picture to share with people, because the willow tree represents this flexible yet resilient picture of the throughout life. Instead of snapping, when change comes our way, the willow tree is able to adjust to life's pressures, right? So after a storm, the willow tree exists the way it is because underneath it all are the nutrients, are all the pieces that allow this tree to withstand the elements of the storms that come our way. And so mental health literacy is so important, and the concept of resilience, right? That capacity to recover quickly from difficult or toughness, and ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. We've all experienced change by, having to not be on campuses, studying virtually, not being with the friends in our schools, being with different cohorts, but again, we know that we can face adversity and trauma and tragedy, and it's connected to our fight, flight, freeze response. And so, again, without that response, we would just jump into traffic, right? So part of it is just, it's really helping us to understand that we all have the power of resilience in our lives, and to work at it, right? And so part of today is just building our literacy, building our understanding of mental health promotion, and what are we going to do to promote that individually, and how can we become champions in the communities that we live and work in.
It's like there's this little voice in your head that just wants to keep you where you are.
Such an intense feeling of like loneliness.
And in reality, I'm going home and crying like every night.
You wake up every day not knowing like where you're gonna be mentally.
To try and properly describe depression, the feeling of it, it's tough. It just kind of feels like a hole. And every time you feel like you're starting to get a little bit happy, you start climbing out, and then something reminds you, and you just fall back down again.
Expressing myself has always kind of felt like I'm kind of stuck in this like straitjacket almost. People who have bipolar, they get labeled as crazy and all the words in the book. It's just so lonely,
This is my rock bottom. I don't know what could get worse. Depression bleeds on others, where I might feel a certain way and I will isolate myself. That's what's so dangerous about it. By isolating myself, I'm stuck with just me and listening to me, which is like the bad guy in this scenario. It's like all this negativity that gets in your head, and then you just have to dwell in it.
You could be so happy, so great, and then you don't sleep for like a whole 2 days. You're like just bedridden.
I don't want to be staying up until the sun comes up every day.
And it makes life difficult. It makes me not want to live sometimes.
It's often the brain going like, hey, remember this? And there's like nothing you can do to avoid it.
It's just feeling so small in like a huge world, and like nobody will ever understand you and nobody will ever accept you.
It definitely has a domino effect, psychologically and physically.
I feel like if just more people took time to like understand mental illness, like we would live in a much better world.
We never know, dealing with depression, how bad people around us need us.
it's very often, you know, behind the scenes in somebody's mind, like, you know, they can act completely fine and then go home and not be.
There are probably tons of people that love you and care deeply about you that would be shattered if you disappeared.
It's kind of like what I think of when I think of mental illness. Like, it's like what you feed and like how you, because a lot of it is self-care. A lot of it is like you have to do the work yourself.
So just think of those people and what that would do to them if you were gone.
You feed it also by your loved ones like helping you and kind of like that outward connection as well.
And just for a second, give yourself some credit that you matter, because you do.
So again, you know, this video really talks about that stigma and, you know, how that can be a major barrier in being able to, you know, receive the supports, but also have that connection with those in your life that just are really important to you. So language is important, and you know, this is a great you know, model for you to look at and spend some time. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but again, you know, what we say, right? So we don't say words like crazy or deranged, you know, because it's inaccurate and can imply the existence of a mental illness, you know. And so what we want to do is, you know, communicate with somebody that, you know, I live with schizophrenia, you know, rather than you know, that person's schizophrenic. And so again, when we do those things, we're able to focus on change. We're able to focus on recovery, and we use mental health and well-being and recovery interchangeably, because it is a, you know, like what we've learned so far is that our mental health and well-being is in this constant change. It's fluid, right? So again, what we want to do is improve our health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach our full potential. And we all have the opportunity to be involved in this recovery journey. It's not just about addictions. This is about our well-being. And so again, when we're talking about you know, principles of recovery-oriented language, like we're suggesting in that model, it's person-centered, it emphasizes abilities over limitations, and it doesn't sensationalize, where, you know, again, I think if we had the opportunity to listen to those with lived experience who are living with mental health issues or challenges or a diagnosis, you know, what has been their experience in how people treat and look at their particular diagnosis or issue. And they would often say, gosh, I wish, you know, my identity was not connected to my diagnosis. Again, you know, when we are studying, all of these sorts of things can come up and creep in as a post-secondary student, you know, and again, I think what, you know, Shelby's going to talk about is the importance of, you know, as you're looking at a career and you're moving in towards a social science career in the health profession, you know, it's really allowing ourselves to be more aware of these things that are going on and all of these things that impact, again, our mental health and well-being. Again, you know, we're wanting to create connections, right? And one of the biggest ways of not creating connections is comparing yourself to others. And so I encourage you to compare yourself to yesterday, okay? Look at your goals, you know, write those things down. Acknowledge the transitions that that are going to be happening in your life might be more difficult than you think they are. And just being really honest about that and anticipate those potential stressors. Get ahead of those things. Again, be kind to yourself. visualize the spaces you're going to spend time in. They're going to change. You might be moving to a different province as you study. You might be going into a different university. You're not you don't know anybody. Expect those changes. And again, lastly, identify your feelings daily. And when you're experiencing difficult ones, seek out that support. So it might be people or it might be campus services or student services or a trusted person that's helped you in the past. Find those meaningful connections wherever you are, whether it's in the classroom, in the community that you live in, campus culture, volunteering, reading, so we're doing that intrinsically with ourselves in wellness centers. And again, if you're an international student or not from Manitoba or from Winnipeg, wherever you are, you're studying here for a limited time, it's those connections back home. Or if your family has moved away, how are you connecting with those important people in your life?
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
What's really great, folks, is the opportunity that we have to understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. And so often we take that sympathetic pathway, and what's not great is what comes from that is kind of fixing, right? And just like Brene Brown, who is a well-known psychologist, the opportunity that we have to connect in a real powerful way happens when we are able to have that empathic response. And so really, really excited for Shelby to share the future of community mental health work with you. And then we're going to go into some resources, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Shelby, and I wanted to share a bit about, sorry, I started from the beginning and not the, my apologies, I clicked the wrong button. I wanted to share with you all the, the opportunities for career in community mental health and how wonderful that is. So I'm just going to reshare my screen now. I got it at the right spot. Okay, so the future of community mental health work. So I know that you all might be interested in what opportunities there are for careers to support Manitobans and wherever community you might settle in post-school to support the well-being of the communities that you're a part of. And that's what I'm here to share a bit of. So I just had a little question for the chat, if you all can answer, if you feel comfortable, like what area of study are you interested in or currently in, or do you have a passion that you're interested in pursuing? While you're doing that, I'm going to share a little bit about myself and my journey. So I started my post-secondary education at Red River College, and I did a digital media design diploma there, and I went right into the industry following, and I was a videographer. After a few years of working in the creative arts world, I decided I wanted to go back to school, so I went to the University of Manitoba, and I had dreams of becoming a doctor, which I'm sure there's quite a few of you participating or even listening in that might be, ooh, psychiatry, surgery, dermatology, love these, exciting, awesome, really cool. Okay, so I had dreams of being a doctor. I didn't achieve those myself, and that's okay because I found a lot of passion and excitement in what I do now. And so my current role after graduating through the university with a Bachelor of Science with a major in psychology, I got a job at the Canadian Mental Health Association, my current role. And I found a lot of passion in supporting youth and youth mental health. And so I'm really passionate about my role in developing programs and supporting and talking to youth such as yourselves. And so I really found joy and love in that. But my path wasn't straight. It was obviously there's some twists and turns and some disappointments as well when I didn't get into med school like I wanted to. But that's okay. So I saw in the chat, there's some very, social work, Stephen wrote, I see dermatology, surgery, and psychiatry, very exciting. So there is diversity in community mental health sector. So like no matter what you're passionate about and interested in, there is a role for you within the community mental health. And so there's research roles, there's community wellness roles, there's a lot of holistic health roles. There's specific roles for healthcare as well. Obviously, I see some of you wrote, psychiatry was an interest of yours. That would be more in the healthcare sector, nursing, psych nursing. There's education roles, developing programs and workshops for community members to join in and support their mental health and well-being. There's so many jobs in counseling and casework and counseling, supplying and providing counseling for members of the community. There's program development, human rights and advocacy work, and podcasts and social media. I put that in the bottom because even though my path was not straight and it had a lot of twists and turns, I do use a lot of my skills that I learned at Red River College in my current role at the CMHA. And what I love about community mental health is that there really is an ability to be creative and proactive and active within the community. So as sometimes the more clinical health sectors, there might be, the shifts might be a little bit slower with adding in new programs. Within community mental health, it can be really quick. So within the pandemic, there was a program developed for the education sector that Stephen manages and directs. And that was put up quite quickly in the demand that the mental health the educators, or that we were seeing with educators and their need for mental health supports. Hey, Stephen?
Absolutely.
And how long, like from start to finish, was that program take to develop?
Yeah, so we got funding, and again, this is the other piece with community mental health sector is for some of these areas, the funding is dependent on government. So for many of these things, it's about the funding and what level of government you're going to get that funding from. So our provincial funding was confirmed in September. We had to hire people. We did that in October. November, we did onboarding. And then by December, we had a website, we had a team, we had a working group, and we were providing, connection to the education sector within, 1.5 months.
So really quick, and that's what I wanted to highlight. One of the things I wanted to highlight. It really, the creativity and the ability to be able, once funding is received, to be able to very quickly get programs and services up and running, and that support the community, that the need comes from the community, the communication from our community members that this is what we need and this is what we're missing. Once that's received, it's a quick process to be able to develop these things. It takes a lot of hours of work, of course, but it's really proactive and allows for that development and support and individualized based on the community, what they need and what they're looking for allows for that. So there's been a ton of growth in community mental health, as I'm sure most of you are aware of. On the right side of the screen, I have some screenshots of some news releases from the government of Manitoba. So this is a very robustly growing sector. There's been a lot of news releases on increased funding to current funded programs, as well as funding going into new programs, as well as they have created a new branch of the government for mental health and well-being. And so the jobs within mental health in a community level have been increasing quite exponentially. At CMHA Manitoba and Winnipeg, our staffing has increased 200% in 6 years. That's a lot of people employed. And this means that there's new programs and projects being created, as Stephen spoke to just a second ago when we talked about the Care for All in education. But as well as there's staffing increases within established programs, such as our rehab and rehabilitation, employment supports, counseling supports. All of those are seeing increase and uptake into in our office, but as well as offices across the city and the province and the country. And so this increase in staffing is seen in many organizations within the city as well, and many organizations across the country. So what does this mean? There are jobs, there are tons of jobs, and there are jobs for those that want to pursue masters and professional schooling, if they wanted to go to med school or nursing, occupational therapy. But there's also jobs for people such as myself who have a bachelor's of science degree, and there are jobs for us as well. And so I just wanted to share that. So why choose community mental health work? Most people will tell you that it is rewarding. They get to see the impact of showing up to work every day and supporting those participants in the community accessing the services. They get to see those the positive influence it has on their lives. It's helping support them and helping them get access to the services they need. It's challenging. There's plenty of space to solve problems and come up with solutions in a community-based lens and with co-production. So you bring in people who are going to be accessing the services, you bring them in at the development of the program for them so they can speak to what they need and what what they're wanting access to. It involves giving back, and as well as community wellness and growth. This has an aspect of collective care. So it's us caring for our communities and those around us. And it has lots of space for that. And it's, as I mentioned earlier, proactive. So programs get developed quite quickly. And when the need is seen and funding has been secured, they get developed quickly. And so it's proactive rather than reactive, which plenty of our healthcare system is somebody comes in sick, we help them. The community mental health work is about helping our community as a whole and before they might need services at a hospital or from a psychiatrist, etc. Is there any questions for Ibni? And you can put them in the chat about the potential of working in the community mental health world. I can keep going with the chat, Stephen, if you wanted. Do you want me to?
Yeah, Shelby, so great. You know, what's really, really valuable of what I got from you, Shelby, is the possibilities are endless. And, you know, within the health sector, you know, there's so much fluidity in terms of people's roles. And well, just look at the role that you have, you know, in leading a mental health promotion you know, program targeted to 4th to 6th graders, you know, like 10 years ago, that wasn't happening, right? And how that's evolving, you know, and how we want to be in schools and how we're in post-secondaries. And so the opportunity to share our stories is so important. So we often want to give post-secondary students the opportunity to give back to their high schools within our Speakers Bureau program that's connected to Speak Up, which is really, really great. And so what we want people to experience in high school is hearing from other people with lived experience where they may have had those mental health challenges, but they're in this good place of their recovery journey, right? You know, so they've been connected with supports. There's ongoing integration of what's needed. So in that continuum model, right? You know, they've recognized, you know, where they've moved in and out in that quadrant, you know, in that matrix. And so this is an opportunity to connect and certainly can help you with making that possible. Next slide. Our bounce back is a CBT coaching model for those that are, so cognitive behavioral therapy model for those that are experiencing moderate to low anxiety, depression, and worry. And it's really, really great. You know, this has been going on for nearly a decade. If you go to bounceback.cmha.ca, you'll get lots of information about how you can be involved in that and support others who are looking for this sort of coaching model over the phone. Here's a whole bunch of resources that we want to leave with you. Again, check these things out. There's some great apps. One is Well Central, and so the next slide really showcases what Well Central can provide. Again, it's an online you know, journey for providing support, resources, and guided courses. So there's 3 courses there. Next slide. What it does is it allows you at your own pace to engage in, you know, self-assessment, service navigation with a virtual guide, that online peer support and communities. And again, with that virtual recovery and well-being oriented, you know, opportunity for people just to learn, you know, and it's just super, super great. So go to wellcentral.ca and you'll be able to sign up for that. And I've done 2 of their courses there. So they have a well-being course and a recovery course. Really, really great. And they just put up one on loneliness and isolation. Next slide. There you go. And so again, we want to encourage you to stay in touch with us. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But here are our digits in terms of getting connected with us. But we'd love to answer any questions in the last moments that we have. So I think we'll stop sharing our screen, and then we'll be able to see each other's faces again. Look at this, technology is working for us. I hope this has been helpful.
Yeah, it's been extremely helpful. I would like to thank the both of you so much for this very informative and enlightening presentation. So we'll now be having a Q&A discussion. So questions being asked will be questions asked from participants prior to the event and questions that have been asked during the event in the chat. If any participants in the audience have any more questions for the panelists, please feel free to write your question in the chat and we'll get to them when we've answered the questions asked prior to the event. So one question that is a student at the Seven Oaks Met School asked in the chat was that they're wondering if there are any student internship possibilities at the CMHA.
Yes. Yeah, so depending on, for students in post-secondary, we have those that are doing practicums are opportunities all the time. So usually that's social work, or maybe there's somebody doing a psychology. It really depends on your program, I would say, Shelby, but we have students all the time. And just so you folks know, we'll be hiring students. We have 11 positions that we're going to be filling in the next, 6 weeks for those summer students with our Urban Green team, grants, and with our federal student grants. And so those are open to students 15 years old and higher to give them exposure and experience in this world. So yeah, there is opportunity. Shelby, anything that you would add to that?
No, I think you said it all. The work often is not so much, it depends on your definition of internship, but we do offer work throughout the summer. So summer jobs you often get funding for, and just as Stephen mentioned. And so I'm just messaging you in the chat, and I'm going to send you my email, and I can share those job descriptions with you when they become available.
Yeah, what's wonderful, and I think, again, Shelby is such a great job at looking at such, what is available in the sector. And you talked about podcasts and social media. And so part of, some of the things that, we know are so important is our ownership. So who owns the CMHA? Well, friends, it's you. It's our community. We want to engage in our community, and yet we don't get funding for our communications officer. So companies have like departments where there's 10, 12 people in a communications. We often do communications on the side of our desk, right? And so part of it is, for the first time ever in our 30 some years here at CMHA Manitoba Winnipeg, we have a communications and marketing person who is supporting our education sector initiative. But without that funding, we wouldn't be able to do that. So, so there's opportunities for those sorts of things, and even IT. Right? So with all of this adapting and pivoting to virtual education and opportunities, we've had to increase our IT. And so I know that there's an opportunity for people who are studying in that world or have those skills to be able to be a part of that. But we'll have some of those things up on our website in the near future, because we just got, breaking news here, CNN, we just got those grants and stuff. So great question though, love it.
Thank you. I was wondering if I could ask a verbal question, or do I just need to use the chat?
I think that'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I will pass it on to my internship advisor at the Met School, because I'm a year too young for the program, but I'm sure there's a bunch of kids at the Met School that would be super interested in doing that. But I do have a separate question. So at the Met School, we have school-based projects, and my school-based project is a peer-to-peer support group, and it's going to be all throughout the Met schools. There's 3 in Winnipeg right now: MCAT, Maples, and Seven Oaks Met. And so it is going to be quite the big mountain to climb because it's such a huge project. But I was wondering, what's your opinions on a peer-to-peer support group?
Love them.
It's the cat's meow, okay? It's the
Yeah.
dog's bark, it's the giraffe's whatever, okay? It is so important. Again, when I was training to be a clinician, you know, we often were told you never share your lived experience with people. You know, that's just a no-no, right? And so one of the things that we really advocate here at the CMHA is for staff to be able to share their lived experience. So living with, you know, having a trauma history, living with complex PTSD, living with ADHD, I know it's hard to believe, but the idea of being able to normalize mental health and illness in our community as people with lived experience is great. What we know is peer-to-peer influence in a recovery college model, right? So the recovery college model that you're really talking about, it comes from the UK, and it's always co-designed. So you have community members, you have people with lived experience, peers, and you have professionals. They all come together on the same level. So sometimes we see healthcare professionals as, oh, we're the experts. But again, I imagine, Caitlin, what you're talking about is, you know, the participants, the peer-to-peer, we're the experts. We're the experts in our own lives. And
exactly,
we get to share how we've, you know, done some healthy coping and maybe some not so healthy coping. But it's about connection. It's about reducing the stigma. It's about expanding the support. So I love to hear about the schools that are involved. We have a peer support team here. So in our learning center, and so our manager for the learning center, Cheryl Giesbrecht, I think it would be wonderful for you to get to know Cheryl and maybe her team, and then just even talk about what it's like to have peer support training. So this is the key, Caitlin, is getting the training because it's specific, right? So what we don't want is to use language that's not inviting. Just like we learned about empathy and sympathy, we want to have that empathic response. A sympathetic response would be, you know, you want a sandwich? I'm hungry. You know, like it's not about you, it's about me. And so helping people understand the sort of curiosity that's necessary. You know, Cheryl is just a dynamic teacher and a dynamic coach with that. And we want to see more of this happening in high schools. You know, it's
yeah,
so
and I
cool that
know
you're
like
doing
with
that.
high schools, it is going to be like a different setting and compared to post-secondary education. So I'd have to modify some things like compared, because I was researching like in the U of M, they have one too. So I know I'd have to make some modifications for high school.
Right, and you get to design that, you know, with people. So when you think of, hey, what do I want to see in a peer support environment? My encouragement, Caitlin, is every school is going to look different, you know, based on the audience and based on the environment that you're in, right? There's going to be a lot of similarities, but the culture that you get to create is one of safety, one of, you know, hospitality, one of acceptance, but also one of learning, where we get to, you know, challenge each other in a really supportive environment. And that's what I love. I am so excited for you folks. And again, you know, Caitlin, if you need some support from us, you know, myself, Shelby, James, and again, our peer support folks, you know, there's
I would
great
actually love to get their contact information
Yeah, we can
for the
provide that for
peer-to-peer
you.
support help.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, email me, Caitlin, and when I'll get back to you Monday about that, okay? So I sent you, I don't know if you saw it, but I sent you my email. And
I did.
On the screen, okay. And I'll get you
All right.
on Monday.
And Caitlin,
Yeah.
what grade are you in?
I'm in grade 9.
No way.
Yeah.
And what school are you attending?
I'm at the Seven Oaks Met School.
Okay. You know, I don't know the Seven Oaks Met School.
Yeah, it's a really small school. It's on Jefferson.
Yeah.
It's got quite a different program from the typical high school. We do internships on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we do a lot of like leaving to learn and stuff. And so like I feel like this school has helped me mature so well. Like compared to a lot of people my age, I feel like I can do so much more. I already have like a part-time job, and
That's amazing, Caitlin.
Yeah.
And you're so articulate, Caitlin, and your confidence is just outstanding.
Thank you.
So thank you for that.
All right. So unfortunately, we only have time for those questions. However, if anyone in the audience has any more questions, please feel free to forward those questions to the email where you received the Zoom link, and we will get back to you. With this event coming to a close, on behalf of Project Pulse Winnipeg, we would like to send our sincerest thanks to our amazing speakers for taking the time out of their busy schedules and sharing their insights, experiences, and answering all of the audience's questions. Your expertise in your field and your experiences bring forth a very inspiring discussion with our audience. In addition to our wonderful speakers, we would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to the audience members. Thank you for making this event a success by registering to attend. Moreover, thank you to those who took the time to think of an insightful question and simulated a great conversation. All of you are the reason that all of us on Project Pulse Winnipeg are inspired to continue to create online events. So thank you so much.